Hello and welcome to What the Luxe with me, Fred Moore.
And me, Anand Sharma.
Together we lead Matter of Form, a design consultancy specialising in brand, digital experience and content. And this is a podcast that calls time on tired ideas of luxury.
Alongside industry luminaries and thought leaders, we explore what truly defines category-leading products and services.
In the travel industry currently, you can't go anywhere without hearing about this company. Pelorus was founded in 2017 to approach experiential travel and yachting in a different way, transforming people's perspectives of the world and their impact on the planet through immersive and sustainable experiences. These are unique experiences, tailor-made adventures, and the utmost attention to detail. It's luxury at the edge of the world. And we want to find out what it is they're doing to make such a splash. So today on the podcast, we're delighted to welcome Pelorus co-founder, Geordie Mackay-Lewis. Geordie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Fred. Great to be here.
Am I right in saying you recently got married?
Yes, I have. I've recently got married about 10 days ago in Herefordshire, and we just lucked out. We had an October heat wave, which is just not what we were expecting. But we had an outdoor wedding, which was extremely fortunate, and then a mini moon to Italy, staying at the wonderful Rescue for a few nights, and then down to Puglia and just sort of death by pasta down there, which was amazing. And then we're doing a main moon in April, which will be slightly more adventurous and sort of Pelorus-y.
I was going to say that's firstly, congratulations, but secondly, what a sedate travel experience given what you're used to.
Well, it was great. It was exactly what we needed. Yeah, it was a mini adventure, getting in a Trento and just herring around Puglia, trying to find the best food and at places there were no other tourists. It was great.
We're here obviously to talk about Pelorus and the company and perhaps wider travel themes. But firstly, just to start, it's interesting. You're one of a good list of people who've entered travel from being in the army. Can you tell us how that came about? When you left the army, what were you thinking? How did the army perhaps inform your view of the world?
It's a really interesting sort of segue, because the army gives you this opportunity to see interesting parts of the world, work with fascinating people and other indigenous forces, and sort of satisfies that sense of adventure if you have one. And when you leave, you've been in this sort of very exciting, high adrenaline sort of theatre for however many years. And so when you leave, it's actually quite difficult to then just sit in an office, do a normal job and transition. A lot of people transition fairly easily. Some people don't. But you kind of, some of us, well, how do we utilize the skills that we learned in the army and commercialize those and bring those into another sector and also try and keep that adventure going, and maybe not jump out of a helicopter with shooting a rifle, but you're jumping out of a helicopter shooting a camera. And I think I was always trying to sort of work that out. Yeah, and I left after 6 years, really interesting years. I then went and lived in Milan to run an automotive technology company, which couldn't be more different. I was doing yoga with fashionistas a few months after doing, physical training with a bunch of squaddies. And so it was a sort of incredible shift that sort of enabled me to just try to transition in quite a sort of hard way, just like hard switch off, right, let's move into the commercial world. And that job was amazing because it enabled me to try and, learn the skills of running in a multinational company and utilize some of my leadership skills I learned in the army. And that was a great few years. But then I had this, how do I try and get back the excitement of what I had in the military?
Probably just worth saying that you were of a generation that not only was in the military, but were shot at. It was very raw, that experience, wasn't it? So it wasn't just any old time in the army.
Yeah, it was a fairly busy period. Yeah, did a couple of tours of Afghanistan. It was pretty kinetic over that period. And yeah, we were lucky in many ways. We got that opportunity. We were unlucky in many ways during that time as well. It was a brilliant experience, life experience, and something I wouldn't change for anything. And really, Pelorus has been founded, and it sounds a bit cliche, but it really has been founded on what we learned during that time. And I met my business partner in the foothills of Hindu Kush in Afghanistan, who was also a reconnaissance officer. We learned so much that we've brought over to Pelorus, which has been just invaluable, from keeping our clients safe to the way we plan, to the way we think, and we can get more into that. But I think the army, it's a great foundation, and was brilliant but you need that commercial angle afterwards to learn how to run a business and start that and enter the challenge of commerce and entrepreneurship, which is just as challenging as some of the things we faced in the army. And so learning how to run a business afterwards was kind of critical, even though it was in a completely different sector. But that was vital, and that sort of then enabled me to then run another travel business before launching into Pelorus.
Essentially, what is Pelorus for those who don't know about you, and what was the gap in the market that you saw? I think you've touched on a couple of things already, but tell us about that.
So I ran a sort of venture travel business prior for about 3 years, and it was sort of super niche and was quite directed in sort of one way. It was a fascinating experience and very grateful for that time, but it enabled me to see into the very high-end travel world, the yacht world, which was something I'm just completely alien to, and just other, into the sort of high net worth, ultra high net worth world as well. And that's a whole sector in itself, as you're acutely aware. And so it was sort of a bit of a baptism of fire, but coming in fresh is so useful because you just see everything through a different lens. And I just saw big gaps. I was like, why is the yacht industry just not doing anything creative? Obviously that you're creating amazing designs for super yachts and this and that, but from an experiential perspective, they hadn't changed anything for 70 years. There was one company really doing yacht expeditions and trying to push the boundaries. The yacht brokerage community were just keen on selling yachts, chartering yachts, but not creating experiences. And so I thought a huge gap there after running some yacht expeditions in remote regions and getting an understanding of how that world works. And the same for travel. It was just interesting to see people saying they were being experiential or this sort of new wave. I was at the beginning of that sort of new wave of experiential travel, but no one really doing it. In my mind, coming in fresh, I was like, well, this is exciting. This is an exciting trend to be part of. But then the majority of people were still doing something fairly similar, but you could see the will and desire and the skill sets to do it, but it just wasn't really being achieved. So it immediately dawned on me and Jimmy, my business partner, when we sort of reconnected after the army, after quite some time, that there were these opportunities, not just in travel, but also in yachting and also in the corporate experience sector and in aviation, I think. And, we're doing one at a time, but we wanted to launch a brand that could harness all of that and deliver extraordinary experiences in those sectors and bring them together under one brand. And that hadn't been done before. And so that's really what we set out to create.
Were you surprised that people were willing to pay well for these, hyper-personalized or extraordinary collection of experiences that you offer?
I'm really glad you mentioned hyper-personalized. It's definitely the world we're stepping into now. I needed that proof of concept in the business I ran before, just to see who was willing to spend that kind of money and who really wanted that level of creativity. The issue I had in the previous business, it was just so high, the costs and everything else. And so we wanted to bring that down a bit, make it more attainable, but also by doing so, encourage the rest of the industry to be more creative and to deliver a better product. And so when we brought it down, we started offering, these sort of billionaire experiences, but for 25,000, which is still a lot of money. You suddenly had this level of creativity and innovation and depth of experience that most luxury travel companies weren't offering at all. And suddenly it was a honeymoon couple could spend $25,000 and get this level of narrative and things they just weren't able to find anywhere else. And that was really exciting. And that just started moving straight away. We launched in November 2017. And by the end of the year, it was just three of us, and we had a really interesting book of small projects, but they were exciting, and we were doing them in a really creative way. And we needed to start that word of mouth. We didn't have big marketing budgets or anything else to launch with, and so it worked really well. It sort of proved that there was this desire, and then the bigger clients came straight after that.
Who are these clients? If it's not too obvious a question, because I bet there's some surprises in there. Who are they, and what are they really looking for when they do a trip with Pelorus?
It's a real mix. 60% of our business comes from the US, and we're investing heavily in that space. There isn't really a company like ours over there yet, so that's interesting. But we started in the UK, and it's the same as when we began. It's couples, it's families, it's groups, also corporate groups. A lot of multi-gen families didn't think they could go to sort of more adventurous places, family friendly and stay safe and do it in style. And so it's still the same group from the beginning, the same type of people who just want something different, and they don't want an off-the-shelf safari. They really want us to listen to what their intent is and what they want to get out of it. Some don't even know what they want to get out of it, and that's a great process to go through them with. But some do, but they haven't been listened to before. And so, our whole model is around putting the client's intent first, and then worrying about the location and where we're going to achieve that intent right at the back end of the process, which is the opposite of what traditionally the luxury travel space do. You normally speak to a destination specialist who's going to sell that destination because that's their job. They're just going to focus on the safari. I want to go on a safari in East Africa. Okay, I'll sell you a safari in East Africa. It'll be bespoke to you, sure, but it's not really bespoke. It's going to be off the shelf because that's what that individual has sold many of, and that's what they need to do to achieve their targets. Whereas we're like, well, let's not do destination specialists. Let's do customer specialists, really understand our clients and their intent and how best to achieve their intent. What experiences can we create to achieve that intent? And then where in the world can we do that? Do that right at the end. And that's served us amazingly well.
It must be the best, for someone interested in travel, must be one of the best jobs in the world, being a travel designer for Pelorus.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I think it's, we're just super lucky. We have an extraordinary team of talented individuals worldwide now, majority here in the UK, but a team in America, in Monaco for the yacht team, in South Africa, and in the Middle East. And so they are super passionate about what they do, but they get the chance to organize and plan and design and operate experiences that no one's doing. And it's and they get healthy budgets to be super creative and do whatever they like. And I think that's a really interesting opportunity. And they get to do recce's and in some cases they get to host the clients and actually deliver the experiences on the ground. I think that's also really interesting. So they're travel designers, but I'd almost call them special operators, and that sounds a bit military, but they are special operators because they're not only designing extraordinary experiences, but they're operating them to the highest standards and with no mistakes. We can't afford any mistakes with the clients we deal with, and that's really interesting. There's 3 of the guys just came back from British Columbia, having led a group there on this amazing experience, taking a group from essentially sort of free diving on the bottom of the ocean in the Great Bear Rainforest to understand how the food chain and the natural cycle works from literally bottom of the ocean all the way up. We took through the forest, through the salmon, the bears, up into the glaciers, up to the top of the mountains where the water run starts. What an amazing experience for three of our team to go out there and deliver that. Yeah, super cool. So I see them as specialists, as amazing operators, not just designers, and I think they do so much more than their peers in the industry.
What actually gives you the most satisfaction? What type of trip or what type of perhaps transformation in your clients that you see on these experiences? What is it that it finishes and you go, God, we nailed that. That was brilliant. Because it's not all about the obvious stuff of them seeing a new vista or a luxury hotel.
I think it's that emotional reaction. If we can create an emotional reaction, a wow factor, a breathtaking experience every day throughout their entire trip that they're doing with us, then it's memorable. And we deal, our commodity is time and memories, and that's where we maximize the ROI for our clients. We talk about this with our clients during the interview and the brainstorming process. That we want to achieve the highest level of experiential ROI. That's what they're paying us for. It is like you would a stockbroker. You want returns. We are their experience broker. We really need to have a tangible result at the end of that project, and that they feel that they've got the maximum return on their investment. And so through creativity and hyper personalization, and we enable our clients to see the most remote corners of the planet in the safest and the most comfortable way. You just can't forget that. And so they come back with these extraordinary memories, and they talk to all their friends about it, and we sort of rate the feedback. And if we're not right at the top, we're not doing our job properly, and we're not achieving that ROI. So it's about starting with how are we going to create every day an emotional reaction to create that memory.
And the safety aspect I completely get. When we talk about comfort, there's something interesting that perhaps you've noticed, which is, of course, it's not just about the sort of ultra luxury 5-star hotel experience. Good service, good food, all of that it is table stakes. Everyone expects it, but people are willing to pay as much for a wild outpost in somewhere that's actually quite basic. Have you seen any sort of changes in that sort of area of people willing to pay as much for stuff that's perhaps a bit more raw, a bit less sanitized, perhaps?
Absolutely. We pre-COVID, we were sort of pushing remote a lot. So, and that's everything from, it can just not just be a sort of remote camp in the middle of nowhere that we build to enable our clients to see that species or that environment, but it's just on a day. They could be staying in a luxury hotel somewhere, but we create a remote lunch or remote dinner that is just elevates the entire experience for them. But it's rustic and it's raw and it's pure luxury, and it's exactly what they want. That's why they've come to us, because they know we're going to elevate above and beyond what the hotels are offering or anything else. And so I think it started that there was appetite for it before, but post-COVID, there's just extraordinary appetite for it now. People really want to go off grid and they want to go more remote for longer, and they want that rustic luxury feel. But because it's personalized to them and you get that right, it sort of beats a 5-star spa or restaurant or whatever, hands down. But you don't do it all the time. You've got to come in and out. That's the key. You've got to come in and out of comfort zones, and which is what solidifies memories. And so quite often our clients will say, "Oh, we remember that lunch you did on this private, on this sort of little rocky island in the middle of nowhere. That was the highlight of the whole trip." Or, not necessarily the 5-star, 6-star lodge that they were staying in.
There's a little anecdote just from last week. I was listening to a client who operates experiences and adventures in Scandinavia, and they were saying they had a full itinerary laid on for their clients of all the usual stuff of boat trips and exciting things up mountains. And actually the rather kind of time-starved American businessman with his children, it was his daughter wanted to brush a pony's tail because he'd paid for so many riding lessons in his life, but the one thing his daughter had never actually sort of engaged with looking after the horse, and they dropped everything to do that sort of thing that day, which I think it just gives a new lens on what is actually within obviously amazing experiences, wild places. What's unique to people is very, very different and is not homogenous, I guess. We always ask on this podcast questions around kind of trends and AI and things comes up. I think the last 10 minutes, you've just completely given a reason why AI will never replace the travel designer, unless there's any use of technology in a way that you think helps what you do. Clearly, it's a very human, creative effort to design these journeys.
I think we're pre-AI proof. Yeah, I think, but we also want to embrace it. So we've got really excited about various technologies recently. Some are sticking, some aren't. We flirted with NFTs and especially in the studio yacht space, which was interesting and delivered some interesting results for us, but it hasn't stuck. The metaverse is keeping an eye on it, but we're not overly excited just yet. But I think that's going to be an amazing sales tool at some point. But AI is obviously here to stay. It's on everyone's lips right now, and we're still working out how to employ it in Pelorus. You'll never be able to replace what we create, the really creative, personalized piece for our clients, that human connection, because everything we do is so human focused. But there's so many great things we're starting to use it for in R&D, in our marketing. So we're really excited, and it's given us, we're super excited what we're doing already, but we can't wait to sort of really understand how to fully integrate it into what we do. But yeah, as you say, we're comfortable that Pelorus is safe in the future.
I could definitely see you using some of the sort of more designy AI tools to create the most incredible kind of mood boards to help people choose what kind of flavor of experience or thing they're after. There's so many sort of micro applications of AI, but yeah, at the center is a human, understanding another human, really.
We're designing a drive-through cinema in a quarry in Eastern Europe for a client for a celebration, and we managed to do all the imagery for that slide just through AI, with American style, cinema signs with the client's name on it and all the rest of it. And it was just like great, amazing. We would have trawled through, I don't know, God knows how many stock photos to try to get something relevant. But now, just that example is great, and there's so much more to come. So it's quite exciting.
Just zooming up for a sec on the wider travel space, are there any trends in travel at the moment that particularly excite you?
I think clean tech and clean transportation is really exciting, and it's something I sort of geek out on a little bit. We are moving into a a revolution in the way that we move around the planet, and that is super exciting on so many levels, because it's not just about, well, it is about carbon and sustainability, and I'm sure we'll probably come onto that in more detail. But it's also just about the way we move around. So we're investing a lot of time in airships at the moment, and Sergey Brin is launching what will be a mass-produced helium airship for humanitarian reasons, causes and disasters, but also there's a luxury element to it, and we'll be able to take clients at sort of super yacht level, in cabins, 8 cabins with a Michelin-style restaurant and a huge dining area and all the rest of it, inside a 200-meter airship anywhere in the world, and it's super safe. It's slow. It's not. It can be quite fast, but you're going over landscapes and environments and things at a fairly slow pace. And it's just a completely different form of transport that existed in the 20s in quite a big way, and then just disappeared a little bit like supersonic travel. It's just and the shuttle and the rest of it. We just lost this technology. It's great to see that coming back, and we can't wait for that to go live in the next 2 to 3 years and lead those airships around. And I think the same is with eVTOLs and electric aircraft. We're going to be doing airport transfers from airports to hotels, and just one just got signed off by the Chinese FAA, and it's being signed off by the US, very shortly, and Europe will follow. And it's just going to completely transform the way we move our clients around, our guests around in a quiet, sustainable, easy way. It's, trying to do that 3-hour drive from Rome airport last week, which was a lovely drive, but I'm kind of looking forward to doing a 20-minute eVTOL flight from Rome Airport to Rescue in a couple of years' time. I think there's lots of this exciting new technology that is coming online that's sustainable, it's carbon-free. It's just where we need to be as a species. It's taken a long time for us to get this online, and that trend is brilliant. And not to labour it, but there's a whole host of other things coming in, like sustainable aviation fuel that we're going to be launching next month, a partnership with Neste in the Netherlands. So all our clients will be offered sustainable aviation fuel for all of their commercial and their private flights and everything else. And just all this technology that's coming online, and this trend of clean transportation and clean tech is really exciting.
Let's tackle the obvious question. I agree that stuff is amazing, and what's good is it sounds like it's a lot closer than people might think. You could take aim at Pelorus and all of us, frankly, in travel industry for the obvious externalities and issues that are caused with travel. There's lots on the plus side as well. How do you personally reconcile yourself to those issues of Pelorus being a force for good and not perhaps taking more out of the planet than it gives?
Great question. I sort of battle with myself on this. I think we made a decision at the beginning of Pelorus that we would not stand on the sidelines and sort of shout about the problem. We would get involved and try and find solutions from within and promote those solutions and really try and promote that change. It's super difficult. It sounds sort of easy to try and do that. It's remarkably difficult. But that's personally how I reconcile it. As long as I'm doing everything I can in my day job and outside of that to help process that change as fast as possible and help identify solutions, existing solutions, promote those and get our clients to embrace them, but also get the rest of the industry to do it. So you amplify that impact, then I feel like we're doing as much as we can. I think if you stand on the sidelines and just make a lot of noise about it, but you're not actually taking the action, that's a problem. And that's what I was kind of doing before. I realized that. So where the SAF, the sustainable aviation fuel example is an interesting one. That's been around for a while. The aviation industry is embracing it now, slowly, because we're still trying to get the production up. But the travel industry hasn't really done anything. It's just waiting for the aviation industry to do something. But it could have done something a long time ago. It's the same with the yacht industry. The sustainable marine fuel that's available for all sorts of yachts and cargo ships and the rest of it. But that hasn't been embraced yet, really. And so you need companies and brands to say, we're doing this. It's not going to be, it might be voluntary to start off with, but then it's going to be mandatory. 10% of all flights, regardless, are going to have to be SAF. And you build that up. And if you start setting that bar, it's a little bit like the butterfly effect that happened with carbon offsetting, which we don't carbon offset, we carbon capture. But suddenly everyone was doing it. Some brands started and everyone felt like they had to do it. And suddenly amazing wave of change. that needs to happen on so many levels. And so as long as Pelorus is championing that and promoting that and actually doing it ourselves, then I'm much more comfortable with the sort of guilt that comes with travel and what we're doing in our space, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense to me. And if it's also not too much of a kumbaya thing to say, I think everyone also forgets that it's moving in the right direction from a sustainability point of view. But the more people, especially when they're young, who travel and experience other cultures, given all the crap that's happening in the world at the moment, the more tolerance and understanding and sympathy there is from a humanity perspective, which has always been one of the big things of travel. I think that message is getting somewhat lost at the moment. You know, it's very easy to bash travel, particularly at the sort of mass tourism end, obviously, but let's not forget all the great things that travel brings about in so many ways. And also, yes, let's embrace the technologies that are there, that it's really exciting you talk about them and that they're becoming much more tangible. Can you give your one or two favourite places you've visited or experiences you've had?
I'm always sort of challenged by this question because I'm very fortunate to have travelled to lots of different places and there's no sort of favourites. I think there's favourites in different environments, but I think there are some of the more remote and sort of inaccessible places are always come to the forefront of my mind when asked that question. So I think the island of Socotra has been one of the most unique collection of environments I've ever come across. So that's sandwiched between Somalia and Yemen. It's governed by Yemen, and it is just this extraordinary island with some fishermen on the coast and then Bedouin tribesmen in the mountains herding goats. And it's just got forgotten by the world during the Yemeni war. It's pretty cut off from anything. And I went there a few years ago and was just blown away by the people, by 70% of the flora being endemic to Socotra. That doesn't exist anywhere in the world anymore. There's 4 different types of environments on the island. You've got desert, mountains, sort of lush green oases. I mean, there's so much going on, and it's almost great that it's been cut off by the rest of the world in some ways. But I think the people of Socotra need a bit of tourism, and the benefits that brings as well. So that's one of them. We were lucky enough to plan and execute an amazing heli ski operation in Antarctica not long ago, and that was alongside a scientific research project and just an amazing yacht expedition, seeing wildlife as well. But that was skiing first descents in the Antarctic Peninsula, which was just a very humbling experience to be able to do that. 2 vessels, 2 helicopters, a lot of logistics, just quite a complex operation to pull off. 2 years in the planning. So really satisfying to have done that to a sort of very high standard. And Antarctica is, for anyone that's been there, you can't let it go. It's sort of etched. It becomes part of you. And as your point before, Fred, about people need to go to these places to see them and then to champion their cause. And Antarctica is one of those places you become an ambassador of Antarctica. And if you've seen it and you've been there, you'll fight tooth and nail to protect it. So I think it is important people go there still. And there's random places like Song Doon Cave in Vietnam. It's the largest cave in the world. And I was lucky enough to lead a group through there a few years ago. And it's not like a normal cave. We've seen documentaries on caves recently in that part of the world, but this is vast. You can fly a 747 through it. It's got these amazing gaps where the sunlight comes through and these tiny trees who try to fight to get to the top and then sort of river system all through it. You're in there for 4 or 5 days. And that's, again, these marvels that a lot of people don't know exist. And if anyone gets the chance to see them, you've got to sort of, get out of your comfort zone and do it, because you just never forget.
Incredible. What about one place that you haven't been to that's on the top of where you'd like to go? Is there anywhere you haven't been?
Lots of places, and there will always be lots of places. That the issue with our industry is that your bucket list just gets bigger and bigger as you discover more and more amazing experiences and destinations. I haven't been. We have as an organisation quite a lot, but I haven't been to Papua New Guinea, and that is an area that I see. Jimmy, my business partner, has been there. He ran an amazing yacht expedition there for a client who just wanted to go to a sort of final frontier and get completely lost. And we've run a number of other projects there. And every time I see the imagery and the content come back, I'm just like, oh my God, this place it's just got everything. Extraordinary people and tribes. It's got all the Pacific Rim conflict shipwrecks and fighter planes under the water and in the jungle, just pristine, preserved and pristine. It's got incredible wildlife, and it is protected by its tribes. It's still a last frontier, and it won't be for long. Everyone's sort of piling in. So that's somewhere I want to get to in the next 2 or 3 years. I think that's very, very special.
Yes, I had a friend who was in his company was posted to Papua New Guinea for a couple of years, and it was seen as the hardship posting, and he thought quite the opposite. What a wonderful place to be sent. That sounds amazing. Where do you see Pelorus in 10 years' time?
I would love us to be a globally recognized luxury brand known for delivering the most creative, innovative, and personalized experiences on the planet, and across our verticals. So we're in travel, we're in yachting, we're launching aviation quite soon, and to be not the best, because everyone's the best individually, lots of different things, but just to be known as this brand really delivers extraordinary experiences, and to do that on a global level, which is challenging. So we're already firmly in the States, but we're laser focused on US growth right now. But to be global, we need to look at Asia, and we need to look at some other markets, and so the plan in 10 years is to grow and have a presence in Asia, certainly, and maybe some other places. But if we can be globally recognized, that would be a great achievement.
Just looking across at what others are doing, are there any people in travel at the moment who are doing things you find really impressive, or companies or brands you admire?
There are so many people doing incredible things. So I'm constantly in awe seeing who's doing what. I think to pick out one or two, I think and Beyond. I've always had a lot of admiration for and Beyond and what they've achieved. They have managed to not only deliver a sort of amazing luxury product, but do it in an extraordinarily sustainable way. And it really led the sustainability charge before sort of anyone else was. And so their care for people, for wildlife, for the land is impressive, as well as as just being a successful business. So they're one we look up to. And then another on the yacht side is a company called Arxon, and they build explorer yachts, small ones. It's an interesting new sort of niche that they're carving out, which is much needed. They also have an overland division, they have a clothing division as well, but they have this stable ethos as well. So 10% of the time that when you buy an Arxon yacht, 10% of the time of that yacht needs to be dedicated to marine research conservation. I just think that's where we need to go. That's what all companies need to be thinking like. So I think those two brands are getting it. One's already got it right, one's getting it right, and they're sort of newer on the scene. I think exciting to see that kind of ethos.
Well, Geordie, thank you. We do ask the same 4 questions to everyone on this podcast on the way out. There's no exception here, I'm afraid. So the first one is, what most irritates you about your industry? Lots
of things. That's why we're in it, to change some of those. The travel industry and the yacht industry are just full of amazing creative people. And one of the reasons I love being in the industry is, compared to some of the other ones I've been in, is everyone's so nice. Everyone says thank you. It's a great community to be part of. But I feel that it lacks creativity and the innovation that is absolutely there and has the potential of. I think tour operators could be so much more creative. I think most of them are just sort of plugging in existing product and just what's available, how can we make that work, and let's sell that. So I think that there's a real lack of creativity on the travel side. And then especially in yachting, it's just deeply frustrating to see an industry that hasn't really changed in such a long time, and essentially selling the same product wrapped in a different brand or color, and with no desire to elevate that experience for the client. And so we're really excited to disrupt that in a positive way, and get them on the same path as the travel industry, just in a much more experiential, personalized path. Which is much needed, and it's just it takes a long time to get into an industry like that and enact change, but we're excited about that.
Second question, what most concerns you about the world we're leaving the next generation?
There are so many things to be concerned about, but a standout would be just the levels of extinction that are happening. And so I've been extremely lucky to see many species, and there's so many more to see in my lifetime. And I'm really saddened that my children won't see some of those species. And I think WWF calculated that between 0.01 and 1%, 0.1% of all species are going to become extinct each year. So that means we're losing between 200 and 2,000 species every year. And which is just extraordinary that we've allowed that to happen. But it's not all doom and gloom. I think what's most promising about it is that our generation, yours and mine, and our children's, are actually, we're doing so many positive things to turn that around. So I'm very positive and optimistic about the future. If we can slow that down so that our children can see what we've seen, that would be amazing. But it concerns me deeply.
If you had to give up your job tomorrow, Geordie, what would you do?
As an entrepreneur, like you, Fred, there's always lots of shiny things that you want to do all the time. It's difficult to stay focused. But I mean, I'm partially involved with a award-winning bulk of business called Gatatop. I'd love to spend more time on that and really propel that. Something tangible. It's quite different from the service industry and what we do. But because I'm already involved with that, probably that's cheating. So I think full-time in conservation would be where I would feel like I could create the most impact, but also what I find the most rewarding of what we do now is through the Pelorus Foundation and all the great work we're doing on that front. But it's only part of the group, part of my time, and it's so frustrating not to be able to do that full time, because that's really what we should be doing more of. So yeah, a full-time career and the rest of my life in conservation would be epic.
That was a great tour de force of loads of really interesting stuff. So thank you for your time, and we'll look forward to hearing lots more news about you and Pelorus.
Thanks, Fred. It's been a great pleasure being on the show. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been What the Luxe. You can find us on socials at Matterreform, and drop us any questions or comments on Twitter using the hashtag #WhatTheLuxe. Or if you're a luxury brand looking for strategy and design that goes beyond the banal, get in touch via hello@matterreform.com and chat to one of our consultants.